Hello everyone, in this class we are going to learn what is life and scope of a variable. So let's start. Life and scope of variable. Now first of all, what is variable? In digital system, variable defines a memory block that we used to hold some constant value. Clear? That means this, for any particular variable we have a memory block, and then in this particular memory block we will store constant value. That constant value will further used by the system to perform the task. What is this life and scope of a variable? Now for life, what does it means by life of a variable? Life means how long the memory allocated for a particular variable will exist in memory. Clear? That means the memory block, how long the memory block allocated to a variable will exist. Clear? This is called the life of the variable, of any variable. Now what is scope of variable? Next thing is scope. What does it mean by scope of variable? Scope means from which part of the program we can access the variable. That means the part of program from where we can access a variable. Clear? Now this is life and this is scope. So what does life means? Life means how long the memory allocated for a variable will exist in the memory, and scope means from where in the program we can access that particular variable in our program. So now how these two things differ? Now look, we already covered function part. Clear? Now in function we learn how memory is allocated for a function whenever control start execution of any particular block. At that time memory is allocated for the newly entered function, and then when execution of the program is completed, at that time the full memory is deallocated by the system. That means no longer those variables or those memory in those allocated memory are not exist in memory for any further use. Clear? So that is where we come with this two concept, life and scope. So let's start. Look, let's say we have a function, and within this function we declare integer a and b, and in entry point function we have one more variable like int x. Now what happened? How system will allocate memory for these two function when the system execute this particular program? Look at here. First, system allocate memory for main function, and inside this main function memory is allocated for the variable x to 2011, let's say this is the base address and initialized with garbage value, and then when from main function, when we call the function fun, at that time control switch from main function to fun, and in this fun function the memory is allocated for the variable integer a and b. Now a and b. Now let's say the base address of a is 203011 and 3020. So both are initialized with garbage value. Now what happened next? Now look at this scenario. Currently we are in the main function. That means this we are accessing this particular portion of instructions. That means we are in memory, we are here in this particular block, and in this particular block we have two variables, that is a and b. That means these two particular variable a and b will be accessible only from this particular function. Outside of this particular function, these two variable is not accessible. So this particular portion is the scope for this particular two variable a and b. That means if we talk about the code segment, at that time this is the block where a and b is declared. That means the scope of these two particular variable a and b is this one, this particular block. That means we can access the variable a and b, or we can use the variable a and b only from this particular block. Outside this particular block we can't access the variable a and b. Now look, when we are in the fun function, at that time memory for main function is also exist. But inside the main function, a variable is declared. That variable is called x, and this variable is declared within this particular block. This particular variable is declared within this particular block. That means we can access the variable x only from inside this particular block. Outside this particular block, the variable integer x is not accessible. Clear? That means the scope of this particular variable is only this particular block, not outside of this particular block. Clear? Now look, memory is exist for integer x when we are in fun function, but from fun function we can't access the variable integer x, which is defined or which is declared inside main function, not inside fun function. So this particular variable x, even though when we are in fun function, even though the memory is exist for the variable x, but then also we can't access that particular variable from fun function. That is because of its scope. Because the scope of integer x is this particular block, not this particular block, and we are in this particular block. Clear? Now when we come back to the main function after completion of execution of main function, at that time what will happen? At that time system will deallocate all the memory allocated for the fun function. Now what happened? Now these two variable is not exist in memory. That means what is the life of this particular variable a and b? The life of this particular variable means how long the memory allocated for these two particular variable are exist in memory. So how long the memory allocated for the variable a and b exist in memory? That is only the execution time of this particular function fun. Clear? After completion of execution of this particular function fun, the memory allocated for a and b will also deallocated. That means these two particular variable is no longer exist in memory. So what is the life of this particular variable a and b? The life of this particular variable a and b is the block where they are defined. So in this particular code segment where this two particular variable is defined, this two particular variable is defined inside the block fun. So life of this particular variable is this particular block only. Now now we come back from fun function to main function. Now we are in this particular main function. Now in this particular function, now in this particular function, when we are in this particular block, in this particular function, that means we are in this particular block, at that time the memory allocated for fun function is already deallocated. That means no longer a and b is exist in memory. So now we are in here, that means in this particular block we can access the variable a, but we can't access the variable a and b. Clear? Because the scope of variable a and b is not main function. The scope of this a and b is the fun function. Clear? So now when execution of main function is also completed, at that time what will happen? At that time the memory allocated for this particular variable, the memory allocated for this particular variable x will also deallocated. That means this one is also no longer exist in memory. Clear? So how we can define this block and scope? So let's start. Let's say this is our block 1 and this is our block 2. Block 2. So now variable, then life, then scope. So we have total how many variables? We have total 3 variables, x, then a, then b. Now x is declared inside declaration, means in which block it is the variable is declared, then life, then scope. Now in which function, in which block x, variable x is declared? The variable x is declared in block 2, that means main function. So variable x is declared in block 2. So from where we can access this particular variable x, we can access this particular variable x only from the block in which it is declared. That means the scope of the variable is only block 2. Now how long we can access this particular variable x? We can access this particular variable x until we come out from block 2. Within block 2 we can access this particular variable x, because this block 2 is the scope of this particular variable. Now coming to the life of this particular variable. Life means how long the memory will exist in, how long the memory block will exist in digital memory. So how long the memory allocated for this variable x will exist in memory? Until the completion of this particular main function. That means until this particular main block 2, the execution of block 2 is completed. That means again the life is also block 2. That means execution of main function, execution time of main function, execution time of main. Clear? Now the next part, the next variable we have is a. So where a is declared in block 1. Now what will be the scope of this variable? That means where we can access this particular variable, we can access both of these variable or only within this block 1. That means the scope of variable a will be block 1. Now the life means how long the memory allocated for the variable will exist in the memory. So how long the memory allocated for variable A and B will exist in memory until the completion of this particular block is complete. That means the execution time of fun. Execution time of fun. Now block variable B. Again variable B again declared within function fun function. That means declaration is in block 1. Next one is, so as declared inside the block 1, that means the scope is also block 1. Now again the life of this particular variable B, again the life of this particular variable B will be the execution of function fun. So execution time of fun. Clear? Now, so hope you understood the concept, how life and scope are defined. Look, in this particular example, both life and scope are the same block for each and every variable, but this may not be the scenario in every case. So we will see some example where the life and scope will be different.